Mike Harris here, back with What in the Law podcast. Filming with the beautiful mountains as my backdrop. And in Colorado here, we're not only famous for the mountains, we're famous for cannabis. And with all of the new products, new medicine, new information, and new laws come new problems. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about cannabis DUIs and DWAIs and some ideas of how to avoid getting charged with that. Now, it's important to remember that no matter how legal the product is, it's always illegal to drive while you are impaired by any substance, whether it be alcohol, marijuana, prescription medication, or anything else. And the way that is defined in Colorado is in relation to driving. It is specifically defined under our DWAI law, or our lower level of drug-induced driving laws, that it is illegal to drive if you are impaired by the slightest degree that you are less safe to drive than had you not consumed the product. Now that can make for some particular difficulties for medical patients who might be more safe to drive with their medicine. And regardless, it is important to remember that the police are very picky when they come across someone who they suspect might be impaired. And I have seen many cases where written reports describe someone as particularly stoned, and the video makes the person look pretty darn good. And even if you can beat a case, it's always better to not have a case. So here are some ideas of things you can do as precautions to avoid having to go through a case like this. First thing is beware of odors. If that smell is still on your breath, the police see you driving and pull you over and they smell that, they are going to ask you to go through a DUI investigation. Try to wait at least long enough that you don't have that odor on your breath. Same thing with that odor somewhere else. If you are in a room with other people smoking marijuana, your clothes might stink, and they might stink for a long time, and you might not even notice it. Bring a change of clothes. Keep it in a sealed bag in your car, and change your clothes before you drive. And throw the stinky ones sealed up in the trunk where they're not going to catch anyone's attention. A third thing you can do before thinking about getting behind the wheel is check your balance. How are you able to walk? Do you seem off? Can you hold your leg up for 30 seconds? You don't necessarily have to be able to do something like that perfectly, but how are you acting? How are you moving around? Fourth thing is check your timing. Count to 30 seconds on and compare it to a stopwatch. That's something the police will often ask to do. And if you are way too fast or way too slow, don't drive. Check your eyes. One of the first things the police are going to look at is to see if your eyes are bloodshot. Make sure your eyes are okay and don't look particularly bad. Another thing you need to look at is, what is your attitude like? Certainly it can be great to be friendly and telling jokes, but that might also mean you're not in a condition to be driving. You always want to be polite with the police, of course, but you don't need to be making friends, telling jokes, or doing anything particularly off. So check your attitude and make sure that you're pretty coherent and normal. Next thing is, keep any products out of the passenger area. Keep them in that trunk, sealed up, and not able to be reached. Of course, don't drive while you are consuming. That, unfortunately, is something that happens all too often. Now, I'm going to have another little talk in a minute about medical patients, but generally, keep that stuff out of there. Next is to make sure you understand, you know what you are able to take. you need to not only know what your limit is, but know what you are consuming. There is so many differences in how marijuana can affect you, and it's not just how much. There's different strains, there's different percentages of THC in them, and especially if you're taking edibles, edibles can have very different effects, whether you mix something with chocolate or gelatin or something else. So make sure you not only know your limit, but know what you're taking, because you might feel okay, and then during the drive, you have an effect. That's especially common with edibles, and it's not a defense that you weren't feeling it when you started driving. Next is beware of mixing. Alcohol and cannabis combined can have different effects on people, and for some people, it can feel like you're almost canceling out how they feel, and you might not realize exactly how messed up you are. And I've seen many cases where the numbers on the tests are particularly high because the person didn't realize how strong it was getting. So just avoid mixing alcohol and cannabis or any other prescription medication on a day that you're going to drive. Finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about medical patients. Now, it's important to remember that it is not a defense that you had a red card or a medical marijuana card. However, that can be important evidence. Keep your card current. Keep your records available. Obviously, you're not going to have them in the middle of the road when you're driving, but make sure you have that stuff current. Because if you are accused, that could be evidence of why you might have a higher tolerance than other people, and might also explain why it is safe for you to drive if that is the case. Finally, make sure you wait enough, whether you're a medical patient or not. If you're going to consume anything, take as long as it takes. It's a lot cheaper to get an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi than to hire someone like me, even if you're able to beat the case. And if you're not used to the product you're using, the time is very difficult to say. I would tell you, if you're not sure, wait at least 4 hours after smoking or vaping, and at least 12 hours after taking an edible, no matter what the strength is, until you know exactly what you're able to use, both in limit and on the product itself. So that's some ideas of how to hopefully avoid getting charged with a DUI or a DWAI. So give me any comments, questions, give me a like or a subscription. Check me out on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Facebook, and others coming soon. See you next time on What in the Law podcast.